Welcome back from that short commercial break. At this very particular time, let's head straight to the press review. It's exactly 33 minutes past the hour of 7 a.m. And of course, don't forget Zabu. And of course, for you to be able to invest in Alltech securities, as you will be in position to invest in securities at whatever part of the country you will be at. Just dial *292#. And of course, quite a number of options will be available to you to ensure that you can actually make these transactions quite efficient. The markets open at 8:15 a.m. and they close at 3:15 p.m. East African time. Do something new and you'll be in position to earn yourself a side income as a business person. It's been made easy that you can purchase the stocks now at whatever part of the country you are at. Now let's head straight to the press review, and I'm going to start with the New Vision as we check out what's really making business headlines. And of course, just on the top here, I see businesses get 1 trillion shillings for cheap loans. That's on page 5. But I'll get there. Let me first of all review this of women entrepreneurs. That's to get 827 billion. That's to improve their business operations. Just a brief hint here. The World Bank, through the government of Uganda, has earmarked that's 217 million US dollars, which is equivalent to 827 billion shillings, to empower grassroots women and those engaged in small and medium enterprises. So that's quite something very remarkable. And for women entrepreneurship that's in Uganda, this is quite an enormous amount of money. And maybe to wind up this, the revelation was made by the gender minister, that's Betty Among, who said that the money was a grant from the World Bank to help improve the women's livelihoods. All right, and still further in what's making headlines here, I see something so interesting as experts oppose degree requirement for primary and nursery teachers. Education experts have recommended that the Education Ministry should review the National Teachers Policy, which mandates that nursery and primary teachers should be degree holders. Wow. What do you think about that? Before actually diploma personnel have been teaching nursery schools and primary, but now the standard is being raised quite so high. So that's something for you right there to see that as a person right there. You look through it probably, but I don't know. But that's just an opinion from the leaders. Okay, now as I continue, let's get straight to the headline, which was on top, which says, that was on page 1, and it's driving me to page 5, which says, yes, banks announced 1 trillion shilling, that's for small and medium enterprises. Financial institutions under their umbrella body, that's the Uganda Bankers Association, have unveiled a special regional export facility that's of an initial 1 trillion shillings as a financial package to support to support manufacturers and exporters in Uganda. Wow, very remarkable. Still, as I continue further with this, the facility takes effect. That will be taking effect that starting November 2022. With a 12% interest rate per year, which translates to 1% per month. Okay, now still looking at the New Vision, looking through what's making headlines in the world of business, and of course I can see something brief here as members of parliament probe police officers over missing that's compensation funds. Yes, the Parliamentary Committee that's on Defense and Internal Affairs has commenced investigations into untraceable 0.28 billion Ugandan shillings. That's Uganda National Roads Authority compensation to the police relating to the Kampala flyover. Okay, now let me put the New Vision aside. Now let's head straight to the Daily Monitor and see what's making headlines right there into the world of business. All right, and of course we are still looking through right here, and of course what's really coming up here is pork chicken prices that's rising over tax fight. Of course, Uganda Revenue Authority's decision to seize hundreds that's of inbound trucks transporting raw materials that's for making poultry and animal feeds over 18 billion shillings that's tax areas, have ignited a meltdown in the businesses, leading to shortages and that's the price hikes for dealers, farmers, and consumers at the same time. All right, the fight, of course, it still goes as the Uganda Revenue Authority argues that it took a hard time after discovering that some importers were bringing into the country, of course, country premises and inferior feed nutrients instead of the then taxed exempt concentrate. Okay, and of course, quite a lot of challenges are being faced by the people that are dealing into that particular sector. All right, and maybe just a brief on the Ebola, as we see here that Ebola lockdown affects. That's about 500 court cases. That's right there in Mubende. And I see still here regarding Ebola, Mubende, Kasanda farmers suffer losses. And of course, some farmers and vendors in Mubende and Kasanda are stuck with their produce after President Museveni imposed that's a 21-day lockdown in the two districts to contain the outbreak of Ebola. Agriculture prices have since reduced drastically because the public transport was banned. Public transport was banned in the district, of course. That's quite very, very inconveniencing to the sector. And of course, sorry, Ebola since claimed 24 lives as of Monday, according to the Ministry of Health. Other affected farmers are from Chegwegwa and Kukumiro districts, which neighbor Mubende and Kasanda. Very interesting insight. All right, okay. I'm still reviewing the papers in here to see what really could be making headlines. But of course, we are strictly looking at the business side of what is really transpiring. As I'm going through the pages, I think I'm already into the time of the international news, but if I can review something, just one more right here, maybe we could actually, it could help us and we could see something quite very, very, very interesting. Okay, all right. I think I may not go so far from here. Maybe just a report here of the benefits of linking that other economic sectors to oil. It's just an insight right here as linkages between Uganda's oil and gas to other sectors of the economy are progressively being created. Of course, this will be important in creating a lasting economic value long after the oil and gas production comes to a fruition. Of course, when it's being exploited, that's come 2025. It's exactly 42 minutes. That's past the hour of 7 a.m. and at this particular time, let's head straight to the international news and see what's making headlines. That's across borders. Let's get straight to that. Yes, and with the international news, we start with Tanzania and Kenya goods. We are looking at these two countries, the relations, as Tanzania clears trucks ferrying goods to Kenya after delay. Trucks ferrying goods to Kenya from Tanzania, which had been stuck that's at the Namanga border the last week, have been cleared just days after President William Ruto's visit, that's to the neighboring country. An official at the customs office said that the snarl up that's on the Tanzanian side had been caused by the lack of proper documentation that's by the truckers entering Kenya. Almost 1,000 trucks have been marooned at the border for nearly a week. Nearly a week, imagine that. In what customs officials attributed to non-compliancy on export permits. Looking at still this report, in August, Tanzania introduced an export permit for all persons trading in maize and other grain in its territory. As President Ruto was in Tanzania last week, where he advocated that's for the free movement of goods among the East African countries. He held bilateral talks with her Tanzanian counterpart, that's Samia Uhuru. Ruto called for opening of borders to allow trading that's without barriers for all the East African community member states. The head of state made the same remarks to his visit to Uganda. East African Community Protocol allows the free movement of cargo between members. However, the region has been grappling with a couple of non-tariff barriers over the last years which have hindered that's the free trade. More trucks from Tanzania are ferrying maize to Kenya as the country steps up that's imports to try to cover up the local deficit. Wow, a very interesting aspect right here. Data from the East African Community Grain Council shows imports that's from Tanzania nearly grew fivefold last year. That's to 469,474 tons from 98,000 tons in 2020, making it the largest exporter of grain to the country. And that's quite remarkable. From 80,000 rising all the way to 469,000. That's 474. That's quite a very remarkable, of course, increase regarding that. And now that's regarding Kenya and Tanzania, as the trucks have been cleared right there. And now let's head straight still in Kenya, still in the East African community. And this time around, we are looking at the Kenya Revenue Authority collecting 3 billion from beer, juice, and water taxes. The Taxman projects that the recent increases in excise duty as a result of inflation adjustments will net an addition of 3 billion in revenues, even as manufacturers brace the lower demand. The Kenya Revenue Authority raised taxes on a range of excisable goods like beer, bottled water, and juice by 6.3% from this month. That's in line with the average price growth for the financial year ended June 2022. But the Kenya Revenue Authority maintains that the increments will not significantly hurt consumption. The upward adjustment that's in line with the Section 10 that's of the Excise Duty Act is aimed at stabilizing revenue by ensuring tax receipts, of course, do not lag when the prices increase. The annual review enforced on October 1st increased by duty on a litre of beer that's by 8.4 Kenyan shillings to that's 142.44 that's Kenyan shillings. Wine and of course spirits, whiskey, and all those were increased in the bottled by different ranges by of course the tax depending on the consumption rate. Other products whose duty has been increased are cigarettes with the filter by 0.24 Kenyan shillings. That's to 4,067 shillings. That's per stick. While tax on a kilogram of imported sugar confectionery and white chocolate has gone up by 2.54 and 14.56 shillings respectively to 42.91 shillings and 257.55 Kenyan shillings. Excise duty per unit of that's motorcycle, or what we can call border, on the other hand, has increased from 767.67 shillings to 12,000. That's 952.83 Kenyan shillings. The inflation adjustment does not, however, apply to the goods which are subject to Valorum excise taxes. The increased duty review has consequently not been affected on the motor vehicles, cosmetics, jewelry, imported pasta, food supplements, imported eggs, and potatoes. All right, we wind up the international news with the United Kingdom, and this time around we are talking inflation. Maybe before I get through the reports, I believe you've been watching all over the international globe. Members in the European countries, most especially France, there has been riots as of course the protesters are trying to negotiate with the governments, the international governments, to ensure that they try to lower down the prices, because the standards of living are really rising so high. This has happened in France, and probably We don't know where the wave will head towards that. Protesters on the streets since this week began on Monday, actually over the weekend. So now we are looking at UK inflation, the same inflation which has led to protests in France. That's in Paris. Okay, British inflation jumped back above 10%. That's in September on soaring food prices. That's, of course, official data showed on Wednesday, with the country gripped by a cost of living crisis. The consumer prices index accelerated to 10.1% on an annual basis, up from 9.9%. That's in August, the Office of the National Statistics said, of course, in a statement. The September rate matched the level in July, and is the highest in 40 years, and also as a result of the sky-high energy bills. Of course, food and non-alcoholic beverage prices were the biggest driver of inflation. That's in September, as they rose up by 14.5%. The biggest jump since April 1980, according to the historic model estimates of the Consumer Price Index. Hotel prices also increased in September, the ONS said, and of course the government has been rocked by chaos in the markets in the wake of a budget that pledged and costed tax cuts. Regarding that, the majority that's of those measures have since been reversed, leaving Prime Minister Liz Truss that's fighting to save her job. Remember, she's the newly elected Prime Minister of England or of the United Kingdom. Following the widespread criticism that's over the budget, the Truss sacked Hunt's predecessor, that's Kwasi Kwarteng, that's after fewer than 6 weeks in the role. And of course, analysts said on Wednesday's data that would put pressure on the Bank of England, that's to keep raising its main interest rate by sizable amounts. Capital economics, of course, as we still reviewing this particular aspect of the British inflation. All right, I think it's exactly 51 minutes past the hour of 7, and now let's get straight to the business tips and quotes. And of course, these are very instrumental to inspire you as a business personnel right there, to ensure that you can actually make the right decisions, and also you being in position to ensure that you go through, you review what people that have gone ahead of you have gone through, and that will be essential to inspire you to ensure that you can actually be like them, or even much more better. Of course, the latter is always better than the former. All right, let's head straight to the business tips and quotes, but firstly, let's review the business tip of the day. Of course, the business tip of the day says learn from your customers as you grow your business. Listening to that's to feedback from your customer. Of course, it's very crucial. It can be easy to read a negative feedback, but the truth, well, we've done this before, but just to give you more highlight, because I know every day there is a new person that is watching these tips, and probably you will need to know what really they mean as we, of course, examine them in that particular aspect. Examine your customers. It's very important. As much as we know that the reason that's why we start up businesses is to make sure that we make the money, but remember, there is somebody that is supposed to bring you that money, and that is the customer. So remember to put him in mind when you're putting up your investment. That will be very essential. That will be very crucial. That's going to really create the line between, that's the distinction between you and other, of course, business personnel, because you care about your customers. Mind to find out what do they like and what they don't like. What would they want to improve? Because when you get to know this data, this information, it's going to empower you to go back onto your innovation board, your innovation team, and of course you're going to be looking for solutions. Always find a way to make your services better for the customers before you actually think about just getting money from them. Remember, we are in a very competitive world. It's hard to tell what people think. People's desires and tastes keep changing on a daily basis. So if you really are not so sensitive about your customers, chances are high you're likely to lose majority. And of course, when you lose the majority, that means you won't be able to make the money that you want to make. All right, let's wind this up with the business quote of the day. And the business quote of the day says, train yourself to let go of the things you fear to lose. That's the writer, that's George Lucas. Wow. Train yourself to let go of the things you fear to lose. You know, the greatest deception, or what I say, the greatest torment that mankind faces is the things that we don't know, the unknown. Simply because sometimes there are things we cling on to, and we take so much dearly, and at the end of the day, they hinder our progress. For example, looking at the business-wise, you fear to make a loss. You know, but this is just a journey to your business career. Get used to that. I remember, if you study the Bible, Job, one of the wealthiest people, what I can say even a business person to ever exist in the history of the world, lost everything. And actually, when you read the Bible, Job says, the things I feared the most have happened to me. So, you fear, and in most cases, the things you fear will come to you. But this is just to show you that you can overcome this. So, you know, when Job lost everything, but at the end of the day, he regained back much more because he got the wisdom. And also the mere fact that he knew that he accepted what had happened and he had to embrace it, and he got more in return. So the same applies to today's world, that fear to lose, fear to make losses. At some point, you may have to face courts due to probably fraud. At some point, this fraud may not really actually be true, but in view of that, and in that process, you might even lose some of your property, of your property you've been working for over years and years back. Just let it be, embrace it, move on, because at the end of the day, there is somebody that is going to go through the same experience that you've gone through. But the decision you make will determine the future of the generations of entrepreneurs to come. So you see that whenever you're doing something in this world, it's never about you. Remember, you're building something which another man will come and build on. A foundation. You're laying a foundation. So embrace anything. Overcome those fears. Loss will be there. And at some point, there could be somebody in your lineage that might inherit your empire and they make it collapse. But it is okay. Better days ahead, definitely. It will always come back. So learn to embrace that, knowing that when you fail, when you fall, when you lose, you come back with the double. All right. It's exactly 56 minutes past the hour of 7, 4 minutes just to 8 a.m. And of course, let's get into a short commercial break. I shall be returning back with the Coffee Court. Good morning.